Hey everyone, it's Fairiekin, and today is a super duper special project, and also a series of unfortunate events. Last video I made, I talked about attending DollCon Dallas, and I was really excited, but 3 days before I was supposed to leave, I contracted pink eye. And then, started getting fevers after that. And then the day before I was supposed to leave, I was still pretty sick, and it snowed at least a foot, and all the roads were closed, and I wasn't able to make it to my flight. And I also didn't want to risk getting anyone else sick, or making my sickness worse, or contracting something worse on top of it. Before that, though, I had been planning this trip for about 9 months with one of my closest friends, Amber of Serenadol. And while we were planning this trip, we decided that we wanted to do a doll swap as well. In the time between the trip, we would make dolls for each other and swap them when we meet up. So this is that doll. And I am still making plans to head over to her place and get the doll to her, because honestly, I was mostly just looking forward to a trip with a good friend. It's been a little over 2 years since we've seen each other, and I really miss her. But because the weather hasn't stopped being crazy, I haven't made it up yet. It'll happen eventually, though. And I'll make a video about that as well. Okay, moving towards making the doll. Amber had this great idea for each of us to choose 10 words, mix them up, and then randomly choose 5 words out of the 20 to work with as prompts. Our list of words is light, pastel, woodsy, glittery, frivolous, aberrant, soft, cloudy, adroit, dull, limpid, taciturn, misty, pendulous, holographic, sweet, and nondescript. Wowie! I D&D style rolled for my words with a D20 and got adroit, limpid, decadent, verdant, and taciturn. I feel like I got some really challenging words, and I definitely stretched the definitions of some of them. So, let me explain how I went into it. For decadent, I chose to just use this word for the design as a whole. This will be a decadent doll. For verdant, I will be using lots of fake plants and green. For adroit, this is one of those where I stretched the definition a little, but don't tell anybody, especially not my mom. I decided to use techniques that require me to be adroit. But more on that later. For limpid, I'm taking this super literally. I used this word in choosing the doll to work on. I chose a Spectra Vondergeist doll because she has clear legs. Limpid legs. And for taciturn, I stretched this one a lot. Taciturn means quiet in nature, so I chose quiet colors, and I'm using butterflies as part of the design because they are quiet. That's all I could think of. It took me hours to put this together and come up with enough bullcrap to make it work. It's like my senior year of high school. Anyway. But part of this challenge is that I'm not allowing myself to use black on any of the doll, not even the face-up, because, you know, I'm using quiet colors. You'll notice this cool book I have to write down all my ideas and draw out all my ideas. That was poor grammar, ignore that. This is the doll design sketchbook made by Lee from Dolly Mixtures. This is the coolest thing I've ever used. It's so useful. I will put the link to it in the description. Okay, after that long spiel, let's get started on actually making the doll. This is an old Spectra body that I've had for a long time. This was the first time I fixed the neck peg on a doll, and I'm pretty sure I did it the wrong direction, but it'll get covered either way. I replaced the arms and hands with extra ones that I had laying around. You know, as you do. Anyway, I plan on painting these over, and I want the white to blend into the orange, so I tried to stipple it with a toothbrush, but it didn't work, so I ended splattering it with the toothbrush, and this worked much better. Then I paint the hands orange, and paint the webs of the hands to look like monarch wings. And I know, I failed at avoiding black a few times, but I paint it over with brown and tried again. Now to create more limpid legs. Oh my god. I sand off the paint on her legs, and I actually wish that I hadn't done this, but you know, hindsight is 20/20, I guess. Stuff happens. The sanding made the legs more matte instead of clear, so I covered it over with a tiny layer of UV resin and cured it in my lamp, and later cured it in the sun just to make sure that it was up to my standards. Now to paint the head white. I covered it in several layers of watered down paint. This helps the paint to be smooth and have less visible brushstrokes. I bet it took probably 20 coats before it got to looking like this. And as you can see, I already got into the reroute at this point. For the reroute, I take a needle cut at an angle and hook some hair into it, and then plunge it into the head. After it was done, I did end up damaging the paint a little, but I was able to fix that, or at least hide it with hair. For a fun detail, I ended up splattering the sides of her face with green and blue paint. This doesn't really serve much of a purpose other than I've always wanted to do it, and it was super fun. So, for my challenge to develop my skills a little bit, I'm almost out of MSC, and it's cold as heck here, or it was when I was filming this, so this is going to be my first face-up with just acrylic paint. I'm super intimidated, but I do almost have 5 years of this under my belt, so it should be okay? Maybe? I start with blushing. This required a lot of back and forth quickly with pink and white paint to make sure that the blend was smooth, but eventually I got there. And then, I'm not sure what happened here, but I'm missing a bunch of footage, and I've been having technical issues with my files, and I'm not sure whether I forgot to film it or lost the footage somehow, but I'm missing a ton of footage of the face-up, and there's truly nothing I can do about it. I want to apologize, but that's kind of out of my hands sometimes. I'm trying very, very hard to get more organized for my own peace of mind, but that's hard when sometimes I feel like my brain isn't my own. Anyway, with brown paint, I painted in the outlines of the eyes, and here I'm cleaning up the lines and adjusting things to make sure that they are symmetrical. I paint the lips this like peachy beige color, and later I changed it to a raspberry color. Okay, I'm gonna stop and verbally catch you up because of missing footage. I added a crease in the eyelids and refined the lash lines and used gray to add dimension and make the lines look spherical. I go in with a spring green for the iris. Pause again for missing footage. I'm just as disappointed as you are. Using red paint, I added waterlines to the lower lid. And with dark brown, I added the pupils and gradient from dark to light on the iris. And a very, very light green for the highlight in the eyes. Okay, continue. Now I'm using a tiny brush and dark brown paint and very delicate strokes for the eyelashes. And eventually I go in with white paint to refine the small lines. Eyelashes are so hard, guys. No matter what medium you use, they're difficult, but it's so rewarding when you get them right. Now with that same tiny brush and brown paint, I make eyebrows. And I wish I had placed them a little different, or maybe a different shape, but they're cute. And now I unwrap her, and seeing her with her hair the first time is so pretty. For my very first acrylic face-up, I am super pleased. I wanted her to be a bit more cutesy, but you know what? She's pretty. And the face-up only took me like maybe a few hours spanned over a few days, whereas with MSC, it might have taken me a full week. So that's pretty nice. Anyway, I add lifelike shine to her eyes and lips using UV resin. I paint on a thin layer of resin and cure it in the sun. Now, I want her hair to be curly, so I heat up a rasp, I think is what it is, with a flat iron, and carefully use it like a tiny curling iron. Be careful not to burn your fingers with this method, though. It's pretty easy to do. And now that that's all done, let's move on to her clothes. I draw out the pattern pieces and choose my fabrics. I wanted more spring greens in my selection of fabric because, you know, of the prompt, but I actually don't have any. And I have a goal not to buy any more fabric because I don't have any more room for fabric, and I'm wanting to be more environmentally conscious, and also fabric is so expensive, so I'm just gonna try to avoid buying more. So the colors I have are the colors I have. I start on the dress by making the bodice. Then I attach the front panel with this pretty golden fabric and add some lace sleeves. I wanted these to be puff sleeves, but I've misunderstood how to do that, so maybe next time. Anyway, for the skirt, I wanted a high-low skirt. I had to look up how to make this full size before I made it miniature. I had 3 panels. No, I made 3 panels to ruche to the waist, and I didn't sew up the front panel all the way because I knew I had to cut that off to achieve the high-low effect. And then I ruched the skirt to the waist and cut the front of the skirt in an S shape. I'll put the video that I watched in the description so that you can make sense of it, because it was kind of hard for me to figure out, and it's kind of hard for me to explain. So anyway, now I think it would be cruel to give a friend a doll without giving them a signature Fairiekin fairy doll. So let's get started on the wings. I made some guidelines on paper and then traced this onto the gold fabric. I add a seam allowance and add fabric glue around the edges so that it won't fray. This fabric frays quite badly, so I have to combat that. I make 4 of each and then glue them together stuffed pillow style. I glue them together wrong sides facing, with a hole to turn them right side out, and close up that part too. Then for the monarch wing pattern, I mix this fabric painting medium with, I know, it's black paint. Eventually I go over it with brown after I remembered that I'm not allowed to use black. I'm sorry, I failed. This makes acrylic paint into fabric paint, and I've had really great luck with this. From here I just paint on the monarch wing pattern. And then I paint it on both sides and sew them together in the middle, and this is what they look like when they're done. I painted them brown instead of black, but I made it a cool gradient and it looks nice. Right, okay? I messed up, but I fixed it, alright? This is how we learn. I was unhappy with the dots at the top, so I painted those back in with white. After putting this together, I decided that I was bored with the dress, so I added ruffles at the bottom, with both the blue studded fabric and some white tulle. Holding all this up together looks much more finished. Now to make the design much more decadent. I chose from an array of random flowers and bits to glue everywhere. It doesn't matter where, just as long as it looks pretty, it'll be nice. To attach the wings, I used hook and eyes and hooked them to her shoulders. I was gonna use like Velcro or like buttons or something, but then I found these and I was like, that might work. I took a long time picking out shoes. My selection was a pair of Nephiras, a pair of Rochelle's, and then a pair of that moth doll's shoes. I can't remember her name. The yellow ones were too bulky, and I ruled those out. So I thought I was gonna use Nephiras because they're pretty. But I actually preferred Rochelle's once I put them on her. I just painted them white, and with that, she's all done. I'm pretty darn happy with how she turned out. I think she's super pretty, and I'm really proud of the face-up, being that I didn't have any MSC. Do you think that I did well with the prompts? What would you have done differently? What do you think those words inspire for you? Eventually, I'll have a video out of me getting this doll to Amber, but for now, I'm just gonna end it here. I hope you're all doing well, and remember to distance yourself from things that make you exhausted. Whether that's people, or a place, or whatever, and sometimes that's hard to avoid, but just try. It'll be good for you, I promise. Anyway, that's all for me. Huge thank you to my channel members. I forgot to say that in the beginning, but I love you all very much. I need to catch up with you guys again. Thank you everybody so much for your support. I love you. Okay, bye. I'm gonna move my microphone closer. Hey future Hava, this is where you don't need to turn up the audio because you remembered to move the microphone closer to your face.